We're continuing our topic of 100 mitzvahs. We did a bunch. I think we did 7 already. We have 2 more in the category of daily living and Jewish daily living, and these are loans and maaser, which is tithing. We didn't include in here tzedakah because very well we're going to include things that we're kind of like a little bit new for people. So we're like that might have to push themselves to do a little bit more. So we put in loans and maaser. I want to talk a little bit just about tzedakah though today. The next class we'll do loans. And we'll do a maaser, which is tithing. So, but just a question before that in relation to loans. What's on a higher level? Giving a loan to somebody or giving tzedakah? What do you think? Tzedakah, loan. Okay, I guess those are 2 options. So tzedakah is talked about more, right? We talk about tzedakah a lot. But Maimonides says it's more a bigger mitzvah to give a loan. Why do you think that is?
Embarrassed to get a loan.
Yeah, you give someone a loan, you spare them the embarrassment, you get them on their own 2 feet, you enable them to do their own thing. Maimonides says what's even bigger than that, and the Gemara says this too, Rish Lakish says this, is to help them start their own business. It's even a lot higher level. So often, and what's really interesting is when you read all about tzedakah in the Torah, every case that talks about tzedakah, it's actually referring to loans. So loans are a very important thing in Judaism. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. So when Maimonides famously has a list of 8 levels of tzedakah. You heard about these before? So if you haven't, if you have, I still have a few more new things for you here. So the first level is of the levels of tzedakah. He just puts loans in as the top level. That's the highest level of tzedakah. Give somebody a loan. After that, he has 3 levels, 2, 3, and 4, which deal with at least one side that doesn't know who's giving the tzedakah. So the highest level of tzedakah after loans is that you give tzedakah to somebody and somebody receives it, and neither of you know who's giving or who's receiving. So how does that happen? So you deposit it, let's say, like in an organization or some central place where poor people can access it, and that would be a way that you wouldn't know and they wouldn't know. This spares a certain embarrassment from the side of the taker, and also perhaps it's a little bit harder from the side of the giver, and they're doing just like an altruistic mitzvah. 3 and 4 deal with one side not knowing. So here's my question for you. Maimonides ranks them. What do you think's higher in his ranking? The giver knows, but the taker doesn't know? Or the giver doesn't know, but the taker knows? So think it through. So we say that what was the first option? The giver knows, okay? The giver knows who he's giving to. He knows, I want to give it to Sarah and John. I want them to have this money. But he finds a way to give it to them in the way that they don't know. Or the opposite. Sarah and John know who gave it, that John donated this great money, but John doesn't know who he gave it to. What do you think is a higher level? What do you think? That what? That the giver doesn't know. What do you think? The what? So you think it's a higher level that the giver would know, but the taker would not know. And you would argue that maybe it's the opposite, or that the taker would know, and that the giver wouldn't know, because maybe the giver wouldn't know. That's a higher level because you're doing it for the sake of heaven, maybe, right? You don't know who it's going to. So Maimonides says the higher level is that the taker doesn't know, because you're sparing the taker the embarrassment, like you said. But you can argue otherwise. It's interesting. No, I never paid attention to that. That's how he ranks it.
And then when he sees the taker, there's always going to be that view of maybe how he treats the taker different.
So you think it's
more so if the taker knows who the giver is, he's going to feel more indebted to that.
Yeah, I agree with you. You could, I agree. That's why I brought up the conversation. I think you could argue otherwise. People don't usually pay attention to that ranking here. But you could argue like that. Rambam would not say that. But okay. Now we have 5, 6, 7, and 8 where both of them know. Okay, so the next level is that this is a beautiful level. He says that you give tzedakah with one's hands before they even ask. Right? We don't really think about that as much. Like you think of ways you can practically give tzedakah before you even ask to give tzedakah. Think about who needs. That's a beautiful thing. And even if they know, still, it's a high level. After that is that you give after you're asked. Okay. So one of the rabbis comes to you for donations, you give nevertheless through a happy countenance. That's level 6. Level 5 is if you just give to fill it without us even asking you. So that for you, Gary. And, all right, so number 7, and Lewis from a year ago. Okay, so one level lower is you give him less than one should, but with kindness. So, we need, can you please give me, $100? I can give you what I can, and I can't give you the whole thing, but I'm giving with kindness, okay? The lowest level is that you give them begrudgingly. But I want to note that that's a level. Give what you can. It's in the 8 levels. It's in there. It's on there. Give what you can, even if it's annoying, even if it's frustrating for you. Give. That's a mitzvah. That's part of this. That's considered a level of giving tzedakah. So there's a lot to say on these 8 levels. Tomorrow we'll talk about loans. Daily Jewish living. So yesterday we talked about tzedakah. We're continuing the same theme. And we're going to talk about loans. So anyone remember which is on a higher level, loans or tzedakah? Loans, right? So loans are higher level. What was the reason we gave?
Embarrassment, and it increases the person to provide for themselves.
Precisely. So there are 2 more reasons that I saw. Some say that Mara says it goes. Loans are relevant for the rich and the poor. It spreads out to the whole community, whereas tzedakah is primarily for those who are in need and poor. And Rambam also says that it's greater than tzedakah because you give loans oftentimes before the person becomes destitute. So you kind of can withhold them from arriving at that place. And so that's a very important thing. So there are 3 reasons connected to that. I want to talk about a few halachas and a few really nice tips that the Chafetz Chaim offers. This is one of the more underrated books in all of the Jewish library, I think, Avat Chesed. So the Chafetz Chaim, big name. Nobody really knows about this book. They know about his halachic works, they know about his Lashon Hara book. But this is about like how to do chesed, how to give out loans, how to give tzedakah, how to take care of the community. It's a beautiful book. It's if you can get your hands on this book, it's great. So here's a few tips here. So let's go through a few halachas. One central halacha is that one thing to remember is this is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. It's not just like a kindness you're doing to somebody else. It's like tefillin. It's like coming to davening. It's a mitzvah. So if somebody needs a loan and you're able to do it, it's a mitzvah to do it. So it's important to remember that. Important halacha connect this is we don't loan Jews with interest, and there are different reasons to offer for this. One nice explanation I heard is like we're Jews like one family. You want to view other Jews like that. So with your family, ideally, you're offering them loans. You're trying to help them get on their feet. It's not about you making money off them. It's about you helping them. And I think that's a good answer. There's a few other answers. I think that's a good one. You don't have to give loans to every single person. First, give to trustworthy people who can give back the loan. But don't be overly cautious, they say. They say oftentimes you think you're being really careful with loans. You're being more careful with your riches and your own money instead of being careful with your concern for them not paying you back. So you have to kind of be careful with that. So here are 2. Another thing is just in terms of precedents, there are different level, just like with tzedakah, it's the same thing. So you take into account first the needs of your family, and then the closeness. First the needs. Like if someone really needs versus someone who doesn't need, they will come first. Your family comes before others, and those in your location come before people from other locations. So it's important to remember that. Now here are 2 nice tips offered by the Chafetz Chaim. He says that it's a beautiful idea. I don't know how many people do this. Maybe I'll start doing it. Maybe other people will too. Let's all do it. Okay. Anyway, so he says like this. He says you should set aside money, like a bank account, or like have a fund for loans. He says you should have a separate fund for loans. If this is a mitzvah, we're going to take this seriously. You should have money available for this mitzvah. Yeah. So there's no clear laws on that because everyone's based on their needs and what you can do at different times. But you should definitely. Nevertheless, you should have your heart and your hand open. So this is a way to do it. She says oftentimes, like when you're giving loans, the Yetzer Hara gets involved. It says, you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't give. So if you have the money set aside for this already, it's much easier. And Chafetz Chaim says also, if you have money set aside, your family knows you have that money set aside. They won't get on your case for you giving out loans. That's the money that they're using for loans. There's a few other reasons why it's valuable. He says if you have money set aside, you'll be involved with the mitzvah. And the more you have money and you're kind of like loaning out to a lot of different people, the more good you'll be doing. And you'll be setting a good example for those around you. So it's like 4 reasons. Yetzer Hara, the family, the more involvement and a good more value you'll be doing. And also a good model for your family. He has one more tip. He says that we have to view tzedakah and loans in a different way. Oftentimes, it's some people get frustrated. Somebody comes out and you're alone. Please help me. Why don't you go get it? Why don't you go make the money yourself? Whatever. He says you shouldn't look at it this way, because he has two really good statements which I copied down here. He says the amount of money owned by a person in excess of their needs is a trust fund deposited by the master of the universe, like a whole different perspective, who appointed him to administer to it, to take pity on the unfortunate, and to extend favors to the needy. So we have a certain amount of money that we need. Then you have a certain excess. Just that excess, it's clear, it's kind of complicated to find it, but that excess, that's a trust fund in your hand. You're supposed to be using that. Hashem gave that to you to disseminate and to give out to those who need. So it's not really even your money in the first place. It's like a beautiful way of understanding it. Another way he says it, whatever the poor really needs belongs to him, is deposited with you on his behalf. Therefore, you must not withhold it from him. So those are two tips from the Chafetz Chaim. One is like try to set aside money. So you have that money available and it's easier for you to access it and give it and perform the mitzvah, of giving loans that people don't talk about. It's not just a favor, it's a mitzvah. And lastly, to see it differently, to not see you're doing a favor or it's frustrating, but rather you're trying to help Hashem disseminate the money that excess money that Hashem gave you to give out to the community.